There are, I would say, 3 different areas where enterprise maps can help you. The first area is about model, enterprise model. Enterprise model is describing the enterprise, the whole company, from business point of view, from application point of view, from technology point of view, or technical point of view, as well as there can be some other views that you will get later on. So we would like to describe the company and connect different types of entities together. Entities, I mean something from business, what business understands, what somebody who is responsible for application is dealing with, and how to connect these stuff together. So the building of enterprise model is the key capability. So build something which describes the whole enterprise. What are the key capabilities underneath? How we support it? Enterprise maps is first of all repository. If you know TOGAF, architecture repository, it's a repository where you can store the information about these objects. The second capability, which is also very important, is a synchronization framework, which is responsible to get the data from various sources, various places from the company, and consolidate this data into the enterprise model, into repository. Okay? Again, I will show you later on what are the integrations, how to integrate enterprise maps with other systems. Another capability which is very important, is also stakeholder and ownership management. So we can define who is responsible for what and from which area. So we can define who is the owner of application, who is the business owner, who is the technical contact, who is support, and so on. And then, based on this, we can define also some responsibilities that you will see later on. The second pillar or second area is how to support transformations in general. Yeah? If you want to transform or change something in IT, what do you need to do as a first step? You need to do some kind of assessment. You need to understand how to transform IT in order to achieve some goals, implement some requirement, or decrease cost, decrease the amount of applications. There can be different types of goals, but in all cases, first of all, you need to understand what you have and understand how to transform it. So enterprise maps, using the enterprise model, can show you the data from different perspectives in order to define the best way how to do it. So enterprise maps provides a lot of views, reports. The second step, once you do the assessment, you need to define how you want to transform it. So you need to define some desired state, target architecture, to-be architecture. There are multiple names for the same description. So you can define the to-be architecture. And again, you can store it in enterprise maps. And once you store this in enterprise maps is able to calculate gap, which is the list of deliverables, list of entities that we need to deliver, which is a difference between the baseline and target architecture. This gap is typically a list of changes that you need to implement. Of course, you can also define multiple to-be architectures. There are multiple projects, multiple transformation activities. So you can use also enterprise maps as a tool where you can show the roadmaps, how the target architectures are linked together, what are the dependencies, how this is linked together. So this is very helpful for transformation activity, not just for the design, but also for the execution of transformation activities. Another very interesting and important capability, which is extremely useful, mainly during the execution, is impact and dependency analysis. Because there are always change requests, there are always changes that are coming either from business side or which are coming from different projects, because there are some cross-project dependencies, or which are simply coming from development or implementation process, because I would say the analysis can sometimes, or needs to be sometimes adjusted, updated, because we found some new things that will change the design. And in all these cases, we need to analyze the impact. If we change this, what is impacted? What projects are impacted? What entities we have to change? What owners we should contact in order to review it, and so on. So there are many requirements connected with impact analysis, of course, as well as dependency. So this is the second area where we can help. And the last area is about governance. We have enterprise model in enterprise maps, which is describing the whole company. So we can define a lot of rules which are validating some specific principles or rules that we need to have aligned in the specific company. I give you some examples. Enterprise maps can validate very simple rules like I would say the data quality rules. Like, for example, all applications should be classified from security point of view. So we should know whether they are handling some private data or not. Because based on this, we can do some decisions. Another typical rule could be, for example, naming convention for application interfaces or for applications. So be able to name the same, or all the application the same way. So we can define the rules. Or all systems should have description, the purpose, why we have these systems in IT. So these are the data quality rules. There can be also data consistency rules, like we are maintaining a list of servers and we are maintaining a list of applications. And of course, the key issue is that the servers are not linked with applications. So we don't know what servers are used by which application. So we can define very simple rule like all servers should be linked at least with one application. If some server is not linked, it's either useless or it's not well linked, okay? Or in opposite, all systems, all applications which are in production or deprecated phase should be linked with infrastructure somehow. If not, then the application is not correctly described. So we can define these very simple rules, and there are these rules that I gave you already defined in this product. So it helps you to maintain the enterprise model. But there can be some other rules which are more advanced, like you can define what are the, I would say, integration patterns, for example, between applications. And then we can validate whether all applications are integrated correctly. Or we can define some referential models and then validate the referential models. Or define what software is supported and then validate whether all systems are using supported software. Supporting system software, running software platforms, databases, operating systems, and so on. So we can define a lot of rules which are automatically validated. How are we validating this? We support in this product something called assertion, which is an atomic check. And this atomic check is typically a small piece of code that you can write even in JavaScript, for example. So it's very simple, typical some condition which defines some rule, and then based on this we return either error or correct return value. So the validation is typically a piece of code, and this validation can be used for multiple purposes. First of all, we can measure the compliance. So we can generate in enterprise maps reports where you can see, well, this is the list of applications and this is the compliance status. And of course, it's sorted according to the compliance. So typically you can see the worst entities in the beginning, including the owners, who is responsible for the specific entity, which is pretty helpful because you can measure it, you can control it, you can find who is responsible, who should fix it. And of course, we can also enforce it. How we can enforce it? For key entities, it's recommended to link these key entities in enterprise maps with workflow engine, which is in enterprise maps, which is responsible for the life cycle of the specific entity. Typically, for example, life cycle of application starts with candidate phase. So somebody defines, we need a new application. The next phase could be, for example, analysis phase. So some analyst has to analyze and define what this application should do, how this application should be designed, and so on. The next step could be development phase. After that, we can move to testing phase, production, and so on. And we can define, for example, a rule that you can't go to production if we miss, for example, operation guide, which is linked with the application. So if we don't have it, enterprise maps will block the transition and defines, well, you need to define this documentation first, then we can continue, okay? So we can use the same policies also for validation and for blocking of the transitions between specific phases in order to force people to deliver the inputs that are necessary to deliver the specific application, deliver specific server, deliver specific business process, doesn't matter. Yeah, so it can be linked with any entity. Let me a little bit drill down into the details. I mentioned that the enterprise model is the key part of enterprise maps. What are the entities which we manage out of the box in the enterprise model? They are described here on this screen. That screen as well. Hopefully it will be consistent, not like Thursday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Wednesday. There are 5 different layers, and here you can see the entities that you can store in enterprise maps out of the box. The first layer is describing business architecture, business layer. There are entities like business process, not sure whether you can read it, yeah? But there are entities like business process, business service, product, business owner, and so on. The second layer, the blue one, is application layer, which is describing the application itself. There are entities like application component, application interface, application service, data object, and so on. Technology layer, the green one, is something that you can typically find in CMDB. Technology layer, which means servers, databases, networks, and so on. But it's simplified compared to CMDB, it's simplified a lot. The next layer is called motivation layer. Motivation layer is responsible for definition why we are doing some changes. Typically, we can define their strategy of the company, as well as you can define their entities like requirement, stakeholder, goal, assessment, and so on. You don't need to use it, by the way. Yeah, it looks like, well, it's a huge model. It is, but you don't need to use it. Yeah, especially in the beginning, it's highly recommended. In opposite, to focus to few entities. The next one is implementation and migration layer. This layer is extremely useful if you want to use planning capabilities in enterprise maps. So there are entities like plateau, which is entity describing to-be architecture. From plateau, we can generate gap. From gap, we can define deliverables, which is the list of assets that we should deliver. These deliverables can be linked with work packages, which can be represented as projects or programs. So this is the way how we can link something we want to implement with the real project management process. So implementation and migration. Of course, under each, if you open any entity here, each entity contains some attributes, like you can see on the right side, as well as each entity can be connected with other entities through relationships. So you can see the arrows between entities. So this is something that you can do in enterprise maps as well. The basic model, which is defined in enterprise maps, is compliant with Archimate 2.0 standard. So if you are using Archimate, then it's very simple to use this tool. If not, you have 2 options. If you use some specific notation, then you can map this notation to Archimate in enterprise maps, or you can extend this model as well. So if you need some new entity in enterprise maps that is not defined out of the box, there is a tool that is able to define new attributes, new relationships, as well as new entities. Okay? So it's fully flexible. It's more or less unlimited from this point of view. So typically, if customer wants something new, which is not a part of this model, or if they want to specialize some entity, like they have 5 different types of servers because they use some specific technology, like some super nodes or something that they want to describe, it's possible. So we can extend the definition of the server, add the new attributes, and even inheritance is working pretty nice in this product. So if you open list of servers, you still see also your specializations that you will build. Okay, so this is the enterprise model. Any questions regarding this? Okay. Of course, each entity in enterprise maps you can store into repository. So this is the connection to repository as well. So if I click to, for example, business service, I can open the list of business services. I can store there the new business services. And there are a lot of, I would say, internal capabilities that can help you to maintain the entities. Like We have auditing capability. So we track all the changes, including the name, who did it, when it was done. We can roll back the changes. We can visualize the dependencies and the systems which are stored in the repository. So there are a lot of capabilities. It's not, of course, just about this list. And you will see this in the next days, what you can do. Let's say we have enterprise model defined. We imported some data into enterprise model. And now I will show you some examples what you can get from this product. What are the views, typical views that you can get. Of course, this is just the example. It's sorted according to the role, which is typically interested to see such outputs. And the first example is about finance. We can show some financial information. Of course, we need some financial information import or define in this product in order to be able to show something. The typical views that we can generate are the views which are somehow aggregating the existing cost structures to the right level. So, for example, we know what are the cost of the applications that we can generate from some financial system. And now we would like to see what is the cost of business service. So using the impact analysis, we can aggregate this cost from applications into the business service level. Okay? Or if we, for example, aggregate multiple costs from or multiple financial fields or values from different systems, like we know what is the hardware cost structure, what is the software cost structure, and then combine it together. What is the investment cost structure? What are the projects that are implementing or changing some objects? So we can combine all this information together and show some views which are very helpful and typically quite unique and very hard to build, because it's very hard to build, for example, what is the cost of the business process. It's very, very complex. But if you have some basic data, we can do it. Another type of views that you can generate are connected with project management and with the assessment process. So we need to find some candidates. We need to find some way how to implement some specific task, like what are the best candidates for cloud transformation. This will be a very nice example that I will show you later on. What is the existing roadmap, for example? If we can link all the information from all activities, we can generate it from project management tool as well. Be able to understand what is the actual level of the implementation of the specific project or specific system. So this is also something that we can generate. The next set of views are connected with governance. So the compliance validations are pretty powerful in case you want to validate some specific set of entities or specific project. So, for example, are we using approved software? What are the candidates that we should migrate? Yeah, and so on. Again, I will show you this in the real product. You will see it several times. Another issue is, of course, can I trust the outputs from enterprise maps? Yeah, very important view, yeah, because we need to understand how well the data is defined in enterprise maps, what is the quality, because trash in, trash out is the issue in this product as well, of course. Change management, a lot of impact and dependency views. You will see that we can do it graphically, we can do it textually in order to see what is impacted, what is the roadmap, what is the list of dependencies. You can generate your own views. So you can, for example, generate view like what are the business processes which are indirectly linked with specific server. So we can go through the whole enterprise model in order to calculate it. So these are the typical views, of course, just examples. And you can generate as many views as you want. And one of the tasks that we will do during this training is how to define these new views, how to build the data sources, and so on. So you will see how to build something which will be very tightly connected with your transformation activities that you want to do for your customers. Okay, so these are the outputs, and now I will show you very briefly how we can import data into this product. The most typical view that we use in most cases, in the beginning especially, is a spreadsheet import. So if customer has something in spreadsheet, that's great. Yeah, it's more than enough. Yeah. Even in the beginning, if you, for example, don't want to integrate some system because it doesn't make sense, you're gonna do the import only once, you can export it into CSV or spreadsheet and you can import it into enterprise maps. And we will show you how. Yeah, this is one of the key tasks that we're gonna do during this training. Be able to take customer data and import this data into enterprise maps. Another data source that you can use and which is pretty useful is configuration database, especially in case that the configuration database is using universal discovery to connect or to discover the existing entities. Why it's important? Because it's something which is quite accurate. Yeah? So we have some accurate baseline of data that we can link with the rest, which is typically maintained manually, which means the quality is pretty low. Yeah? So this is very, very valuable input that we can use. So the list of servers, software which is running on these servers is something which is very helpful. So only the output that we get from UD, nothing more, yeah, is very, very helpful input. Project and portfolio management, another HP tool that can be integrated out of the box. Integrated out of the box means that you will enter URL, username, and password, and that's all. Yeah? And the data will be synchronized automatically. In this case, we are synchronizing information about demands, about projects, about financial information from portfolio management. So we can get, for example, financial information about applications in case that they are maintained in PPM. As well as we have integration with APM. So if customer is already using application portfolio management, APM in this case means application portfolio management, not performance management, is integrated out of the box from version 2.0. Another very valuable data source that we can use is, are the outputs from the modeling tools. In Enterprise Maps, we implemented, I would say, out-of-the-box integration only with one tool, which is Spark Enterprise Architect. Spark, we implemented a plugin into Sparks, which is able to connect Enterprise Maps more tightly and can deliver some collaboration capabilities that are, I would say, not missing, but I would say they are not as advanced as in case of other modeling tools. So what you can do with the plugin, in the beginning, if you start a new project, you can define what is the purpose of this project, and you have three options. The first one is that you are just documenting as is architecture, you are just documenting what you have. Reverse engineering, if you want to describe how the specific system is designed. In this case, if we run the synchronization, Enterprise Maps will take this information and consider this information as is architecture. The second option is that you can define, and this is new, you can define that the project I am going to do in Sparks is a project which is representing some to-be architecture. In this case, all the diagrams, all the assets that you will build are automatically aggregated into some to-be architecture. So you can select, in this case, there is a thin planner to-be architecture already selected, and then everything is aggregated. Why is important? If there are multiple analysts, multiple architects which are analyzing the solution from different perspectives and from different detail level, and if all of them will select the same to-be architecture, everything is automatically aggregated. And then based on this, we can calculate the gap. Based on this, we can calculate and define the deliverables. We can link it with projects and do the rest that is important as well. And also for example, do some cost estimations that this plugin supports as well. The last option is that you can also document deliverable of some project. Let's say the analysis is done during the project phase. So then you can select the project. If this is integrated with PPM, then you can see here the list of active projects. You can select specific project, and this project will be automatically assigned, and we will deliver, or we define the deliverables of the project automatically based on the diagrams. In opposite, Enterprise Maps also offers a shared repository in the project browser, which means that you can access all the assets which are stored in Enterprise Maps independently how these assets were created. Whether I created this manually in Enterprise Maps, or imported through Excel, or imported from CMDB, or imported from PPM, doesn't matter. So here you have the full list of entities. So then, if you design new solution, it simplifies your work a lot because you just drag and drop the systems that you want to use from the existing repository, and you can link them in your solution. And in background, if you do this, Enterprise Maps will automatically analyze the to-be architecture. What is the dependency? Because if you take something from the common repository, it's defined as a dependency. If I create something in my project, it's defined by default as a deliverable of the project that I am actually building. And you can change it, of course, manually. Yeah, it's also possible. So this is the import capability. Another capability that we support in the plugin is that we can change colors automatically of the diagrams based on some criteria. For example, here, lifecycle stage, which is the actual phase of the asset, is defined as a color. Green color in this case means production. So the same diagram that you will build in the beginning, like the solution definition, high-level design, or whatever, you can use later on as a dashboard that is showing the progress of the solution, because it should get more and more green during the implementation. Okay. Another, I think, one of the most useful capabilities in Enterprise Maps or in this plugin is that we can also validate the compliance. So even for designs where development hasn't started yet, we can immediately validate whether this design is aligned with all standards which we defined in Enterprise Maps. So all entities which have red frame are entities which are not compliant. So you can visually immediately validate whether the solutions and diagrams that are delivered are also compliant. So to summarize it, yeah. So what are the data that we can aggregate? We can aggregate information from the modeling tool. We can aggregate information. I haven't mentioned this yet, but we can also aggregate information from files. Typically, all types of JSON or XML-based files can be processed, and CSV as well. There are some files which are supported out of the box, industry standards like WSDLs, XSDs, and so on. But there is a configuration for the parsing tool that can extend this capability. So if you want to parse Tosca files, if you want to parse whatever you want, yeah, some description of interfaces or structure of the application, because from development process you can very often get some description of the solution, then you can synchronize it and we can update the architecture based on these inputs. Of course, it doesn't make sense to do it for one application, but if some customer is using massively some technology, even proprietary one, which is able to provide this information, that it makes sense to define the configuration, define the synchronization process, which will, for example, once a day, check out all the files from the source code repository and push it into Enterprise Maps. Configuration database, I have already mentioned that this is another very useful input. It can be UCMDB, it can be UCMDB with UD, it can be also BSM. Yeah, BSM has the same API like the CMDB, the RTM. So even the BSM from HPE can be integrated. By the way, what I have seen, some of our customers are using also CMDB, UCMDB in this case, as an integration adapter for other solutions. So, for example, one customer is using Atrium CMDB instead of HPE CMDB, but during the implementation, the solution architect decided to install also UCMDB with one adapter to this Atrium and integrated the UCMDB with enterprise maps. So you can use this as another integration adapter as well. Another integration is project and portfolio management and application portfolio management, which is available out of the box. So if you have customer which is using APM, that's great. We can synchronize it. We can get all the data that are defined in APM. Another integration that you can do out of the box with enterprise maps is integration with any relational database. So if you have some proprietary system or some system that you want to integrate and you know what is the database schema of this solution, so you can define the query, how to get a list of applications, for example, then you can use the database adapter that is able to synchronize the data. Of course, enterprise maps is integrated with Active Directory and LDAP, so the list of users and additional information about users can be processed from this data source. And we are supporting also third-party solutions through the synchronization framework. All these integrations are using the same synchronization framework. So this is only the extension of the existing capability if you want to integrate enterprise maps with some different system. Like we don't have PPM from HPE, we have different PPM. We have CMDB from somebody else, so you can do it. The last thing that I would like to show you from this slide deck is this compliance report. Enterprise maps out of the box contains a lot of built-in rules which are validating quality of the model. So typically, if you import data into enterprise maps, you can open the governance dashboard and you can see the most critical issues connected with data quality. Okay? So it's very helpful, especially if you start with some project that you import the data and then you can immediately validate the most typical issues. And one of these issues is, for example, that application should be linked with servers. Yeah? Or in opposite, servers should be linked with applications and so on. So to summarize it, enterprise maps is mainly about enterprise model. It is solving the key issue which is connected with the low traceability with, between entities. Yeah? So typically, the biggest issue is that somebody from business doesn't know what applications are used. Somebody from application architecture or from application team doesn't know how this application is deployed. Somebody from business doesn't know what hardware is used. So can I move data center or this data center to another one? What are the impacted processes? Yeah? How I should plan it? Yeah? There are a lot of questions where you need the traceability or proper traceability handling. Yeah? This is the tool mainly about the traceability handling. And of course, this traceability is mainly defined during transformation projects. Yeah? Because during the transformation, you need to do this type of work like impact analysis, understand how the systems are designed, how I will transform these systems to the new in the new phase, to the new architecture. So you need to design it. So if you use enterprise maps as a collaboration platform where you store it, then enterprise maps will be naturally updated and will provide you up-to-date information which are handling the, I would say, traceability issues. I get very often answer questions like, well, if I look to this model, it can replace all these tools. No, definitely not. Yeah? We are still processing the data which are handled by the various stakeholders. Like there is a technical team which is using CMDB. There is a project management team which is using project management tool. There is a team who is responsible for architecture, and this team is using modeling tool or spreadsheets, or doesn't matter, something, yeah, where they store the information. There is a repository of application or application repository where all applications are somehow processed, either from financial point of view or from technical point of view, or from both. Yeah? So these stakeholders are still using their own tools. So the question is, what is mastered by enterprise maps? What is mastered? The relationships. the dependencies, the visibility, the traceability. This is mastered by enterprise maps, not the assets, but the dependencies. Of course, if customer doesn't have a tool for management of applications, they can use enterprise maps for this. Yeah? If customer doesn't have a tool where they maintain list of servers, you can use enterprise maps to maintain it. But it's not the best tool, yeah, for this, because we have configuration database which is designed for this. But if I compare this with Excel, it's still better solution than the Excel. So in the beginning, you can use enterprise maps as a smart Excel. Yeah? So just as a, I would say, Excel solution which is providing collaboration capabilities. So everybody are updating one file, which is the repository in enterprise maps. Okay, let me start with the next use case. The next use case is connected with enterprise maps 3.0 and about the use case which we called cloud transformation, but it's more about cloud assessment, yeah, which means how to find the best or what are the best application candidates that customer is already using for cloud transformation, or more precisely for CSA and for automated deployment. So yeah, there is a lot of marketing stuff that I will skip, which we don't need. But well, except this one, there are some questions that are quite typical. If somebody wants to implement cloud, and this is the typical requirement for management, we want to cloud because it's modern, everybody have it. So please IT, do the cloud. What does it mean? Yeah, so for these guys, we implemented a use case in enterprise maps that should be able to answer these basic questions. Yeah, like what are the applications which are cloud ready? What application we can publish into external cloud, which means something outside this company, and so on. Yeah, so you can read all this stuff. Of course, this is again just the sub list of the questions. But as I said, the main use case is find the best applications for cloud. How we implemented this use case in enterprise maps? There are 5 steps, if I remember correctly, yeah, that we need to do in order to be able to implement this use case or yeah. The first one is that we need to import into enterprise maps some basic assets that we need to use for the assessment. The basic asset in this case means mainly list of applications. The next step that I'm gonna show you is that we need to gather more information about these applications. So we typically ask 3 different roles which are linked with this application. Somebody from business, somebody from team who is responsible for technical side of the application, and somebody from finance. And we gather some basic information that we need for the cloud assessment. The next step is that we will consolidate these results and show, the next step is the financial assessment, the business case, and so on. The next step is that we will show the results of this assessment in form of reports and views you will see later on. And the last step is that we can also build application service designs or service designs in CSA based on the information that we gather during the assessment process. Okay? How we do this? There are several entry points how you can access this capability. One entry point is that you can access it directly from CSA. So if you install CSA and enterprise maps and integrate these 2 tools together in administration console, you have option called cloud transformation. If you click to cloud transformation, you will get 2 icons. In case it's not integrated, you will get only the white one, the assistance. In case that it is integrated, you will get these 2 blue icons as well, which is the cloud assessment and the reports. Cloud assessment points to dashboard in enterprise maps. If you run it from CSA, You will get also the cloud service automation tile of the application in order to be aligned with UI of CSA. So please don't be confused. Yeah? So sometimes you will see cloud transformation screenshots which contains CSA on the top. It's enterprise maps. Just we have two skins. One skin looks like CSA, another skin looks like enterprise maps. And we will have third one very soon, HPE, that I can show you as well. This is the console. Yes.
CSA is mainly used for subscribing to services. So how does this fit in your subscription to services?
One of the services you can create in CSA is the application service. So to be able to deploy or manage the application. So these type of services, or we create the service designs which are representing the application. Okay. If I click to reports, the second option, I can open some report dashboard that I will show you later on, so where you can see the summary of the results from the assessment process. Okay, so how we can get the data? So the first step, as I mentioned, is that we need to build the application list. If I move here, you will see that it's not just about the application. There are 4 different entities that we need to import. We need to import contacts, mainly because of email, because we need to later on send emails to the guys that are responsible for applications. But it can be integrated with LDAP, which means that it can be a pretty simple task. The second data input is the data center list. So you should define and specify what are the actual data centers and to-be data centers that you are considering to use after the transformation. And there can be internal data centers as well as cloud vendors like Amazon, HPE Cloud, and so on. Then you need to also import list of applications. In case of list of applications, there are only 2 mandatory fields in the table or in the spreadsheet, which is the name of the application and owner. That's all. We don't need more information. Of course, if we have this information, we can import it, and we can process more than this. But spreadsheet, which contains these 2 columns, is enough. The list of applications can be also imported from PPM or CMDB. Yeah, so the integrations that you saw in the previous presentation are still valid for EM3O as well. And list of servers. Again, we can use CMDB, or it can be spreadsheet. It can be multiple inputs. Yeah. So the data import is the first step. In case of spreadsheets import, you can always click to templates, so you will get the templates which is pre-filled, so you can see what is the structure of the data that you need to enter. And then you can import the Excel back to enterprise maps. The second step is that we run surveys. Enterprise Maps 3.0 contains survey engine, which is able to gather the information about any asset. But of course, in this case, these surveys are linked with applications. How does it work? Typically, Enterprise Maps will send an email that you can see on the left side to a specific stakeholder. And if the specific guy clicks to the link, he will get or she will get the web page with very simple questions. Typically, yes, no questions. Yeah, this is the example of technical assessment. The assessment or the survey engine contains also administration portal, which is showing what is the progress of the existing assessment process. Here you can see the list of applications in the table, the list of respondents. If the respondent has a green icon, it means that it's already answered. Yellow icon means that it's not answered yet. And there are options which can help you to manage this in, let's say, more advanced way, like you can take survey instead of somebody. So if you are administrator, if you have administrative rights, so we expect that if somebody is not able to answer the questions, you can plan a workshop and you can fill it together with somebody. So then it's still these answers are considered like answers from the specific guy, but you can do it instead of the specific person. We expect that the same survey can be filled by multiple people. So in this case, you can review the answers. I think that I missed one slide here that shows the table where you can see the questions and the answers, all the answers. So we can review who answered, what was the answer. And in the survey process definition, you can also define how to process multiple answers. Like it can be average, maximum, minimum. So you can define the aggregation way. So just to very briefly show the survey process, in the beginning you need to define the survey process. Survey process means I want to assess something. It doesn't mean that if I import 2,000 applications that I run the whole assessment for 2,000 applications. I can define multiple ways. I can also review the application from time to time, for example. So in the beginning, I need to define the survey definition, which means that I need to also define the message to respondents, what these guys will get in the email, yeah, and what will be the name of the cloud migration of the survey process. The next step is that you will define what applications you want to survey. Once you define what applications you want to survey, well, it seems that there is a mistake in my slide deck. This is the table of the answers, yeah, that I missed in the deck. So you will see the table, names, and the answers. Once you select the applications, you can run the survey, which means that Enterprise Maps will send emails to these guys, and they will get the links, and through these links, they can answer the questions. One survey can have multiple processes. So here you can see one survey that has multiple processes. Yeah, like we started this in 2015. We planned to start it in 2016. We run the survey only for ASAC application, for example. Yeah, so we can have multiple active survey processes in order to, for example, run the survey for one department, or for only business critical applications, or just the review of these business critical applications quarterly, or whatever you want. Yeah, so the survey process management is very advanced because you can run multiple processes per one survey for multiple people. Per specific survey, you can also define user roles which are responsible for the answers. So if you define survey, you can define that this survey is financial survey. So only financial analyst and business owner can answer this application, the survey answers. Of course, if we don't have this role defined in Enterprise Maps, we can also define some fallback process. Let me show this. There is an owner as respondent if no other contacts available. If you check this option, it means that the owner of the application should answer it, which is also very helpful because in case of small application, typically there is only one person who is responsible for this application from business, technical, and financial point of view. If this application is huge, there you can have multiple people which are responsible for different roles. So even this process is handled, okay? By the way, you can build also your own surveys. We define in Enterprise Maps 3 different surveys for different vendors. And it's business survey, technical survey, and financial survey. What is the result of the survey process? It's very simple. There are 3 numbers only. It's a score from financial, business, and technical point of view. If you see the numbers in the middle, the three numbers, these are the numbers for specific one application. This is the application called ASAC, and this ASAC application has these following scores. So from all questions that we have in the survey process, we generate one number, which is number between 0 and 100. 100 means it's suitable. 0 means it's not suitable at all. Typically, it's somewhere in between. If I click to specific domain, for example, for business scores, you can see that there are some subscores. Because typically the survey is designed or separated into several sections, and each section delivers the score. So the overall score is calculated from these subscores. If I click to financial alignment, it's a little bit more complicated. In case of financial alignment calculation, we calculate the score, as well as we calculate also the financial what-if analysis for specific application. So on the right side, you can see that we register 3 different type of data centers. The first one is Amazon, the second one is HP Cloud, the last one is dedicated data center. And based on the information that we gather during the financial and technical analysis, we are also able to show the potential cost structure for the specific data center. This calculation can be done very easily, or I would say there are 2 ways how to calculate it, more precise, complicated way, and very simple one. Simple one means that you need to fill 3 fields that you can see on the screen on the bottom, which means the estimated number of servers. So we define, well, this application is using 5 servers, for example, like in this case. What is the use operating system or platform in general? So we can define what operating systems and platforms are used. And then you need to also define something called server class, which defines the type of the server, flavor of the server. And based on this, we can calculate it. Or the more precise calculation is that if we know what are the dependencies between the application and servers, then we can calculate this more precisely. So we can define the list of servers or show the list of servers and what would be the cost of such server in the different data center. Okay? So there are 2 options how we can calculate it. A rough one, which is using only number of servers, or more complicated one, which is using the real architecture of the application. The financial analysis is also accessible as an overview. Yeah? So here I have a list of applications, and on the right side I can see some financial information like total cost of the application, what is the transformation cost of the application, and then I have a saving opportunity field which describes what is the difference between the existing data center and the cheapest one. Okay? So it shows you how much we can save in case that we will use specific, I would say, more effective data center. And then based on this, we can also calculate ROI. Yeah? So if you want to use enterprise maps only as an assessment tool for the justification of the cloud transformation and analysis what data center is the most suitable, because you can analyze whether I recommend to use Amazon or HP Cloud or internal data center or whatever. This is the way where you or this is the product that can help you to do it, including the calculation of the ROI. As you see, well, the calculation is not 100% accurate. On the other hand, it's always a balance between the effort that you need to spend to build very accurate estimates and the time that, well, it's about the time and the let's say quality of the information. So we were trying to find some balance. So you don't need to enter a huge amount of information, but you still get quite accurate information. So we were trying to use rule 80-20, yeah, almost everywhere, yeah, in order to build something which is reliable enough, but still doesn't require a lot of inputs which are typically not available. Okay. Well, the financial analysis can show other views as well, like the cost structure of the application. What are the most expensive applications from hardware point of view, from cost point of view, and so on. In this case, we can leverage some existing integrations like PPM. For example, if somebody is using PPM and asset management there, we can import this financial information automatically. In case you don't have any system, you can enter this in Enterprise Maps. You can even define some budgeting. We did this for one US customer. So we defined some new entity called budget, and then we were managing the budget distribution per application. So the costs were aligned with the budgets of the specific departments. Yeah, different types of use. So this is the assessment process and the, I would say, what-if analysis for data centers. The next step is that we can visualize the information. The visualization can be done either graphically, like you can see on this slide. So we have a heat map which shows the list of applications. The size of the specific application depends on the cost of the application, so typically size of the application. In this case, and the color represents the suitability for cloud transformation. Green color means high index, which means it's suitable. Red color means it's not suitable. Yellow color means it's somewhere between. The gray color in this case means that we haven't assessed this application yet. So we can also use this as a way how to prioritize what application should be assessed. Yeah. The blue color means that we already have design in CSA. So we consider this as a migrated application into cloud, even when it doesn't need to be deployed in cloud yet. But it means that from assessment point of view, we gathered enough information to deliver a flexible application deployment. We can also show the same list in form of table. If you remember the table of the financial analysis, we have also the assessment analysis where you can see some scores. Like here, you can see the technical score of the application, the recommended data center, and you can also click to the link called Create Service Design, and in this case, it would create a service design in CSA or CODAR solution. As well as you can adjust the transformation strategy. The right column is editable, so if you click in the table to this column, you can also mark what application you want to transform. And the application which are marked as a transformed application, you can see here as a field which has the fill transform. Well, it's a different type of filling pattern, yeah. So you can mark what application should be transformed, which is something which is linked with the next phase of the cloud transformation use case. Well, you can also build a roadmap, but this is a little bit more advanced. Another view that is very important is this cloud transformation data quality view, which is validating what is the quality of the application information that we have in Enterprise Maps. So this way, or in this report, you can see what application, where we missed some information, what information we should fill, including the owner. In this case, owner is administrator, which is one of the compliance issues, because administrator is a technical account typically used for the imports. So this is considered as an issue as well. How do we measure quality? In Enterprise Maps, you can define assertions, which are the atomic checks. These assertions are also linked with severity. And the compliance is calculated from these assertions, which are assigned in this report to the specific asset. In this case of data quality of cloud transformation, it's about application. So we defined some assertions like owner has to be defined, application should be linked with server. So application should have business owner, and so on. So we can define these rules, and based on these rules, we can show the compliancy. And typically, if the algorithm is a little bit more complicated, but let's say if we have all assertions with the same severity, and if I have 10 assertions there, and 5 of these assertions are failing because they are not compliant, then the compliance is 50%. The last step is that you can also build the service design in CSA or CODAR. Based on the information that we aggregated during the assessment process, there is some additional step that you will see in the real product called build application design, where you can use either predefined template, like you can see the Excel on the right side of the spreadsheet, so you can fill the structure of the application in form of Excel with multiple tabs. One is describing the servers, list of servers, which is used by this application. The second one is describing the platforms which are running on these servers, and based on this we can build the application model. The second option is that we can use also Spark's Enterprise Architect for the modeling of the application. So we built some description how to describe, or some project example how to describe the application in order to be able to process by enterprise maps. So how to describe it, how to model the servers, how to model the operating systems, and so on. And based on this, we are able to create the service design in CSA. The service design in CSA is not deployable immediately. Yeah. But I would say it's better than nothing. Yeah? Typically, if you start with a new service design, it's empty. Yeah? So now, based on the information that we will get, you will get some basic structure, like what are the servers used by this application, what are the operating systems and platforms which are running on this application, and so on. Which also means that we are building, there are two types of models in CSA. There are sequence models, and there are topology models. And we are building topology model. We also support referential models in enterprise maps, which means instead of building of this I would say model per application, you can also define in CSA what is the model for J2E application, high available production, for example. And you can define these referential models. And in enterprise maps, instead of building of the design per application, you can say, well, this application is using J2E, high available production design. And then we will instantiate the template that you will build in CSA. We replace the components by the application, and we are able to build this service design as well. Yeah, so there are two types. One is per Excel and service design. Service design can be done either through Excel or through Sparks. Or the second option is that we are using referential models. This is the example of the Sparks documentation, which describes how to design the application. I would say last thing that I would like to show you for those that know CSA quite well is how we manage this integration from CSA point of view. If I open specific application, this is the application detail. It's the application called Ascent on the top of the screen. And on the bottom of the screen, you can see a table. This table shows all the assets of the application that we found in the application model in enterprise maps. And on the right side, you can see that there is something called CSA topology component in the table, the right column, or the right two columns on the right side of the table. And here, you have the CSA topology components that you need to assign. So what enterprise maps does is that we take the model of the application and we take the assigned topology components from CSA and we build the model from topology components. For topology components which are linked with operating systems, you will do this assignment only once, or database, or well, with generic software. Of course, the topology components that represents the application itself, the deployment of the application, you need to assign manually for each application. If the names are the same, it's assigned automatically, names and versions. If the names and versions are not the same, you need to assign this manually, okay? So we are not building the topology model in CSA from Archimate elements. We are building this from topology components or in CSA, which is the, I would say, key information that you need to know in order to understand how this integration is working. Okay, so that's all from the cloud transformation. There is a wizard. Yeah, I mentioned this in the beginning. Let me return back to the home page, there is a wizard in Enterprise Maps which defines the steps. Yeah, so the import data, then you will run the surveys, which is the step 2. Then the next step is analyze results, so you can see the results. Then the next step is model deployment, which is the Excel or Sparks way, how you can define for selected applications that you want to transform, how to build more precise deployment model of application. And the last step is build service design. And then you have 3 options. One is build the service design from the model of the application, build the service design from referential model, and the last option is just import back to Enterprise Maps existing service design for applications which are already created in CSA. Okay, so there is a very, let's say, nice way how to use it. You typically don't need any extensive training to use it, I hope, at least, that we designed it this way, yeah. And you can expect more use cases like this in the future.